Welcome to another edition of the Research Reverb podcast. I'm your host, Mike Kuhn. Even at a relatively young age, Mike Szymanski has a global perspective few business educators can match. Born in Poland with 2 bachelor's degrees, one in international studies, and 2 master's degrees, one in American studies from the University of Warsaw, he earned a PhD in international management and organization from the University of Victoria in Canada. He's had 3-year stints at both one of Moscow's leading business schools in Monterey and the Moscow School of Management in Russia. Since 2023, he has served as Clinical Associate Professor of Business Administration at Gies College of Business. His doctoral dissertation used national soccer teams to research the qualities of effective managers. His study of 355 elite national teams from around the globe demonstrated that teams led by multicultural managers enjoy an advantage in a sport where nations from every corner of the world collide. He has shown that this same idea holds true in international business as well. Building on this foundation, Professor Szymanski has become a leading voice in uncovering the often overlooked intangibles for success on the global business stage. One of his more recent projects extended this interest in diversity to the domain of language. 3 years ago, he brought together 117 MBA students from 23 countries, fluent in English but carrying a wide range of accents, for a research project that explored how non-native accents shape communication and perceptions in global teams. We are privileged to have Professor Szymanski with us. A lot to unpack. Thank you for taking the time to join us.
Hi, Mike, and thank you for having me.
First of all, about your experience teaching as a graduate student in Victoria and your fear that your accents would be a hurdle to your students, and then what was the actual result of that?
Thanks, Mike, for the question. Thanks for the introduction. You know, when you introduced me, you said at a relatively young age, and I chuckled. Yes, I'm still relatively young. And then you asked about my experience in Victoria, Canada, and it's hard to believe, but it's already been like 15 years since that moment. I remember being a first year or second year PhD student early in the program. And because of my experience in consulting, the school leadership asked me to teach a course on international business. And I was excited to do it. I was happy to do it. I was so happy to share all of my knowledge and expertise with the students at the University of Victoria. But at the same time, I was terrified. I was terrified that nobody is going to understand what I say in class because of my accent. Truth to be told, English is not my second language. English is my actually it's my third language after Polish and German. So of course, I was fluent in English. I was reading academic articles. I worked in English before. I was able to communicate in PhD seminars, read papers, write papers. But I was afraid when I'm there in the classroom, students are not going to understand what I say. That was my primary concern. And the other concern I had was that they are going to make fun of me because of my accent, right? And the thing is that it didn't really happen because after the semester was over, I got my teaching evaluations, and of course the numbers were good, yes, but I'm always interested in the comments I get from students. So I opened it and I started reading these comments, and it says, Professor Szymanski is the only professor I was able to understand this semester. And, I was so proud. I was like, okay, I'm really good at communicating. What I had to say resonated with the students. They understood me. Okay, great. But then we have a faculty meeting, and one of the professors he is a Canadian, as Canadian as one can humanly be. He said, I read something strange in my teaching evaluations. The students said that they didn't understand what I was saying because I had an accent. What accent do I have? Of course, he has a Canadian accent, and we have a lot of international students in class. So for some of them, having another international professor, their accent might be much easier than an accent of an local Canadian professor. And that's what got me thinking that maybe there's something more than just how good your English is. Maybe it's more about how you talk, not what you say, but how you say it.
Hmm. Well, fast forward, talk that experience obviously drove your thought process as you talked about, and then you had an idea, as we talked about in the open, to bring the MBA students together at the Global Network Week. I guess before we go into it, we probably need to touch on what exactly is Global Network Week.
The Global Network Week is an annual event that is organized by GNOM, which is the Global Network for Advanced Management. It's basically a network of business schools around the world. There is one school per country that belongs to GNOM. And these schools, of course, they organize, there are different ways how they cooperate, but one of the ways is organizing this Global Network Week, which is an event where students from each school, they go to another school just for a week, right? So this is not like a full term exchange when you go to Italy or you go to Spain for 6 months. No, no, no. MBA students just go to another school for 5 days, 6 days. They get to experience the local culture. They get experience with the local partner school, but they also experience having, MBA students from all around the world coming together. So that's the global network.
Okay. So on this study, what was your hypothesis going in, and talk about what all went into this study?
So I have to say that I have to admit that this wasn't a research study. It all started as an experiment because I was invited to offer a communication workshop because in Mexico and in Russia, most of my research and teaching it revolved around cross-cultural communication, cross-cultural negotiation because that's a big thing these days in business, right? So I was asked to offer a workshop. So I figured, okay, let's do a workshop of that and let's think about different communication channels, right? You can have face-to-face communication, you can have what we are doing, so virtual communication, you can have asynchronous communication, so voicemails and emails. So I had this idea that, when you talk to another human being, they can hear your voice, they can hear your emotion. So all of these face-to-face or personal communication methods, they should be received as much more personal, much more human. You can get the emotions better. And emails, messages, all sorts of messages, they are kind of dry. So I figured, okay, let's do an experiment and let's see if the theory is really there in the real life. So I asked the students to read a case study, and the case study was they are managers at a consulting company. One of their subordinates, younger teammates, didn't really deliver good quality work. So leave them feedback, right? And leave this feedback in two different ways. One, write an email, and the other way, record a voicemail.
Hmm.
And then these emails and voicemails, we send it to other participants. So they could read it, they could listen to that voicemail, and they filled out the survey basically saying like how supportive that message was, how polite was that person, what kind of future I have at the company, from the perspective of the person receiving the feedback. And when we saw the results, we were expecting that voicemails were going to be seen as much more positive, right? Because I can
Makes
hear
sense.
the other person talking, and the way they talk, it shows me that they care about me, and so on. And emails are dry, and we didn't see that. So we started digging a little bit deeper, right? And we tracked, of course, every email, we tracked every voicemail. We knew everything about the people who wrote them and who recorded them. And we noticed that it wasn't really about cross-cultural differences because we figured that okay, maybe the Germans misunderstood the Americans, or maybe the Japanese misunderstood the Australians, and so on. Cross-cultural distance didn't really play a role there, and the reason for that is that all of these students, they were students at elite global business programs, so the business culture in them was so strong that it was really kind of overriding the national cultural differences.
Hmm.
But then we started looking at whether these people were native speakers or non-native speakers. And just to clarify, everyone who participated in this study was fluent in English.
Right.
We did that because there were two stages of this study. The first one was the initial experiment that I did in class, and the following year I did a follow-up, and we carefully selected who was invited to come. So, in order to participate in the second stage, you had to have excellent scores on your test of English as a foreign language. So, everyone who participated was absolutely fluent in English,
Hmm. They just
but
had accents, right?
except for the accents, because
Right.
some of them they spoke with native Brazilian accents, native Mexican accents, native German accents, and so on and so on and so on. So, what we found is that really it is your, we call it the language status, whether you are a native speaker or a non-native speaker. This is the fault line in a group. So even if you have people who are really fluent in a language, but you can still hear their ethnic accent,
Hmm.
that's gonna be the cause for some miscommunication. And there's this overarching assumption that native speakers of a language, and here it's English, but of course we can transfer that to any other language, German, French, and so on. There is this assumption that native speakers are always native speakers are at an advantage. That this is my language, you are a non-native speaker, I command the language much better than you, so I'm gonna be better at communication. Well, communication is a two-way street. So what we noticed, and the data supports that, is that when there is a native speaker communicating with a non-native speaker, there might be some
Hmm.
miscommunication. When two native speakers talk to each other, and just to make it clear, we're talking not only two Americans talking to each other, but let's say an American and a Brit, or an American and an Australian. When we have two native speakers talking to
Hmm.
each other, they communicate quite well. What is interesting is when we have two non-native speakers communicating with each other, so a French and a Brazilian, they communicate with each other quite well. The problems really emerge when you have this mismatch in language status. That's
Interesting.
when people start to trust each other a little bit less. They see their messages as a little bit less positive, a little bit less polite, a little bit less developmental. So that brings us to a conclusion that when you have people of different language status in your team, you have to carefully select the communication channel, the media that you use. So you think that a simple phone call, a short phone call, is going to be much more effective. And if you are a native speaker and you talk to another native speaker, that makes sense because it's
Hmm.
going to be super effective, super quick. But if you talk to a non-native speaker, even if they are fluent in the language, you may have some miscommunication there. So it's not only about what works for you, but what works for the two of you.
Hmm. Do you have any follow-ups that you're planning for this? Because this is very interesting, but it seems like there might be more to unpack.
So my co-authors and I, we're already working on another study like this, kind of like this, in an academic setting.
Okay.
So we are looking at the reactions of students to different professors speaking with different accents. And Mike, you know that here at U of I, we have students from all over the world, but we also have faculty members from all over the world.
Right.
You know, all of them, they are experts in their domains, right? They are really good. They have PhDs, they write academic papers, they read academic papers. So they are really fluent in the language. But a lot of us, myself included, of course, we speak with an accent. So let's see if this has any effect on how students perceive us. And do we still get the effect of this language match and language mismatch?
I would think that would be great information for, like you talked about the international faculty here at Gies Business, where just having that knowledge in the back of your head could really come in handy.
And like the reason why I'm doing this study is also to help people like me 15 years ago. Uh,
Right.
imagine that you're a new faculty member, a freshly minted PhD, and you get to teach your first class at one of the most prestigious and one of the best business schools around the world, and you're terrified because you know your content, you are ready, but you are just freaking out because you don't know if the students are going to make fun of you, whether they are going to even understand you. Maybe if I offer some of that empirical support, like we have some empirical findings to support these claims, that's gonna make some of the junior faculty much more comfortable in class.
Well, I want to shift gears a little bit because we started the show talking about your study of more than 300 elite soccer programs. And for those that aren't familiar, put into perspective just what an international game it is. I mean, I think you can turn on the television and see games from all over the world, whether it's Mexico or Europe or
Mhm.
um, wherever. And what the makeup of those teams are, because it seems like no matter where you are, you have players from all over the world.
That's right. That's right. And Mike, you're absolutely right that you can turn ESPN on and you can watch any game from any local league you want. You've here in the US, you've got MLS, you've got the Mexican League, you can watch the English Premier League, you can watch Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A, and so on and so on. But just keep in mind that all of these domestic leagues, they are still domestic. This is
Mhm.
like your local competition. And then every 4 years, the US national team goes to compete in the World Cup. The Polish national team goes to compete in the World Cup or in the European Championship. That's a very different competitive setting because when you are constantly playing within the domestic league, you are playing with against the same teams, right? And you have teams that have been shaped by the local competitive environment. So all of the teams in the MLS, yes, they have players from all around the world, but they still compete with each other. They are very used to competing with each other. International teams, they are project teams. So whoever is the coach of the US national team calls up players from all of the best teams.
Mhm.
Everyone who has an American passport can play for that team, and that team goes and plays against Brazil, Germany, South Korea, Nigeria, and so on. You have this big event when you get to play at least three teams, each coming from a different continent. And then if you progress, you play again yet another team, and so on. And you have to very quickly adapt your playing style. So something that worked in the MLS may not work when the national team plays Brazil or plays England or plays Germany or South Korea and so on. So this is what we studied. We studied how these national teams, how well they compete against other national
Mhm.
teams, especially in events when you have to face teams that are very different. So that
Okay.
was the background for that study.
What were your metrics in studying the managers?
So what we were interested in, and that's my early research interest, was multicultural individuals. So we're talking about managers who have at least two different cultures in them. So we're talking about Mexican American, Polish, British, German, Turkish, Chinese, Canadian. So people who grow up or they acquire their bicultures, multiculturalism in different ways. We were interested in how people like this contribute to team performance in very international settings. So, when you study the effect of one trait of a person on team performance, you have to control for many different things. So, at the team level, you can be the best coach in the world, but if you get to manage um, Canadian national team, you may not be able to beat the US national team because of the differences in the population of the country.
Hmm.
Canada has to choose their 23 players out of a population of 40 million. The US national team coach has to select the 23 players on the team roster from a population of 340 million. So there is a difference in potential in the team and country potential. So we had to control for that.
Right.
We looked at the manager's experience, how old they are, how many years have they been in the game. So because that's a proxy of what kind of knowledge they have of the game. We had to control for the quality of the team, how good of a team you're managing. And then finally, we looked at the cultural background of the coach, whether they are monocultural or multicultural, and if
Mhm.
multicultural, what kind of multiculturalism they have in them. And then we run statistical analysis to see what is the differences in team performance when led by managers who are multicultural versus managers who are monocultural.
So 355, that's a pretty good sample set. What were your conclusions?
So our conclusions from this study, they are typical for business school research. The conclusion is it depends.
Okay.
It depends, but the essence of that question and the essence of that answer is it depends on what. So it really depends on the environment. There must be a person to environment fit. That's contingency theory, which means if you are a multicultural manager, but your team is monocultural, your competitive environment is monocultural, then your multicultural qualities don't get a chance to
Right.
contribute. But if the competitive environment of your organization, of your team is international, your cross-cultural competencies, your multicultural background can really play a role. So if you're a multicultural manager, you're kind of poised for success in an international setting, but it does not mean that you will be equally successful in a homogeneous
Mhm.
setting, right? So the background of the manager needs to meet the requirements of the competitive environment.
So you say that that sort of result also translates to the business world, right?
Oh, absolutely. Just think about it. Imagine that your whole team is American. You are American, and you run your company, your team on the American market for American customers. All of the other companies are also local companies. Everyone tends to think the same way, and it's efficient, right? We share the
Mhm.
same background, we share the same logic. You don't have to explain your decisions because everyone knows what you mean. But when you have to take that company, take that team to a new market, let's imagine that you're expanding. You're expanding to Mexico. Okay, now when you're entering the Mexican market, you need to quickly understand what are the market demands there. It can be about what the customers want. It can be about how you negotiate with other stakeholders. How do you do business there? And then you will have a multicultural environment. So if all of your experiences are monocultural, then you move to a multicultural environment. you have to learn quickly. But if you already have this multicultural background, that's gonna make it easier for you to adapt to the new environment.
Well, certainly we talked about the stops that you've had. You're a product of the multicultural because you've had stops all around the world. And I know that we mentioned that you're young, but you're not 40 yet. So we're gonna keep you in
Okay.
that in that category. But what do you take away from your stops around the world? And what do you find the students here at Gies are thirsty? Are they thirsty for this kind of knowledge or perspective? Because they're obviously looking to get an edge in their careers. And can you talk about trying to take this knowledge that you have and and apply it to students and what are they looking for at Geese to try to get that edge in the business world?
So no, no, Mike, thanks for that question. I am Polish, born and raised there. I worked in the US, I worked in Canada, I worked in Mexico, I worked in Russia, I guest lecture in Saudi Arabia, India, the UK, and so on, so on. There's a couple of things I noticed. First of all, there are good people everywhere. There are good people, good students everywhere. It's not like Canadian students are better than Americans, Mexicans better than Russians, Russians. We are all people. We have students everywhere, and students all around the world, they know that the future, especially business students, they know that the future of business is global. Yes, maybe the word globalization is not the fanciest word these days, but we still do business globally.
Mhm.
So we need to learn how to interact with people from other nations, from other countries, from other backgrounds. And yes, absolutely, students here at Gies, they are thirsty for that kind of knowledge. And they are actually very lucky because they have professors coming from all around the world, right? Name a country on the planet, and I'm pretty sure that we can find a professor who's somehow connected to that country, and we have students from all over the world. So that's good. That's great. And I think that we should embrace that opportunity. So absolutely, having these multicultural experiences, I think it helps. It helps if you're a business major, but I think it also helps if you're studying anything, because
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what's your major. You can be an architect in the future, but most likely you will work on multinational projects. You want to run a local bakery. Here in Champagne, you will have multicultural customers coming. So you better know how to interact with these people.
Well, I'm sure you've had opportunities to work elsewhere. We've mentioned the places you've worked so far. What attracted you to Geese? Was it that international that you have students and faculty that are coming from around the world, or what else stood out to you when you chose to come to Geese?
So first of all, of course, when I applied, I knew the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I knew it for its reputation. It's an excellent school, really high in all sorts of rankings. So I knew it. I hadn't been to campus before, so I only knew the school. I knew some of the faculty members by their reputation. I applied, and I got invited for a job interview. I came here on campus and I fell in love. First of all, the campus is beautiful,
Hmm.
but that's not everything. I got to meet our faculty, and whenever you meet a faculty member, a professor who's got great reputation, tons of citations, really the leading star in the field, you can expect different things from them. They may have huge egos and so on. That's not the case of our faculty. We really have wonderful, nice, caring faculty here on campus. So when I got to know them, I felt like, okay, this is really a great community. So that's number one. And number two, I take great pride in teaching. I believe that teaching is an important part of our profession. So when I was on campus, I asked Mike Bernard to take me to one of the Business 301 classes. I actually wanted to meet the students. I wanted to see what kind of work they do, how they approach their work. And when I saw students presenting, I was truly impressed. I was truly impressed with the course design. I was truly impressed with the faculty, and I was truly impressed with our students, with the quality of students that we get here. So, when I got home after that job interview, when I talked to my wife, I said like, if they make me an offer, I'm gonna say yes. That I knew after that campus visit, I knew that this was a good place for me, and I only hoped that the school was going to make me an offer, and they made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. So here I am.
Well, we hope you're around for a while for sure.
Hope so too.
And I would think, and in all seriousness, of all the people that you could want to have dinner with, you would be near the top of the list. A lot of good stuff, and we could probably go on for a long time, but I think we're going to end it here. Mike Szymanski, Clinical Associate Professor of Business Administration at Gies Business, has been our guest. Thank you once again, and we look forward to having you back on the program to discuss future projects.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And Mike, if you want to have that dinner conversation, I'm always ready,
Okay.
especially
All
in
right.
English.
We'll hold you to that.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. I'm Mike Kuhn. That's been another edition of the Research Reverb podcast.